Hey there, I'm Carrie, and in this video I'm going to be talking about The Cask of Amontillado, a short story by Edgar Allan Poe that was published in 1846. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to do a summary first and then some analysis, talk about foreshadowing, symbolism, the kind of thing that you might see on a test or in an essay question. I've got timestamps in the video notes, so definitely scroll down, click around, and find exactly what it is you need. If you are wanting specific information on Poe himself, I've done a separate video about that, a little bit about his personal history and the genres he's had an influence on, and I will link that in the video notes as well, so you can learn a little bit more about him. All right, let's get into The Cask of Amontillado. Okay, Cask of Amontillado is told by a first-person narrator, a guy named Montressor. Now, he appears to perhaps be talking to a priest. Perhaps he's getting towards the end of his life and he's wanting to make a final confession. We don't know. But we do know right up front that he has taken revenge on someone named Fortunato. He tells us, I put up with it as best he can, put up with all his nonsense, but, then he insulted me and I couldn't take it anymore and I had to take revenge. Montressor goes on to tell us exactly how he has done it. He lets us know that he and Fortunato have one thing in common. They are both big fans of Italian wine. They're both very skilled, very knowledgeable about fine Italian wines, and he is going to use that in his plan for revenge. One night during the Carnival season, he runs into Fortunato on the street. Now, the story takes place somewhere in Italy, though we don't know what city it is. Now, Carnival is time for lots of costume parties and masquerade balls, and when he runs into Fortunato on the street, Fortunato is wearing a court jester's costume. So he runs into his buddy, Fortunato, and he says, "Hey, so lucky that I ran into you. The crazy thing is, I have just bought a pipe of Amontillado, and buddy, now I'm worried that I got ripped off. You weren't there. I couldn't find you when I was buying it. And I know, that you are an expert in wine. And, I'm just wondering if it's the genuine article." Fortunato's like, "Amontillado, what?" And Montressor says "Yeah, but, I'm about to go and find our buddy Lucchese because he's almost as intelligent about wine as you are, and I can see you are on your way somewhere. You're going to a party or something, so I'm just gonna go find Lucchese to tell me if this is genuine Amontillado or not." And Fortunato's like, no, forget Lucchese. He does not know Amontillado from sherry. Let me help you out. And Montressor is like, no, I know what a popular guy you are. You're dressed up. I can see you're going to a party. I don't want to get in your way. And Fortunato says, "Hey, you are not in my way. You are not going to go get Lucchese. I'm going to try this wine for you." And Montresor's like, "Hey, buddy, I know you've been sick. I know you've had a cold. You're too weak to go and do something like this, down in the vaults." And Fortunato has had enough at this point. He's like, "Shut up. We're not going to go get Lucchese. I am going to test this wine for you. Let's go to your house." And Montresor's like, "Okay, let's go." So he puts on a black mask and a black cape, and they go off to Montressor's palazzo, so his big family mansion there in Italy. Now, Montressor knows that his servants have scurried away for the night. So he and Fortunato are alone at the palazzo, and they head down to the vaults, the catacombs underneath the house. Now, as soon as they get down there into this cellar, this vault, Fortunato has a coughing fit. And Montressor's like, "Dude, are you sure you don't want to go back? I can see you're sick." And Fortunato's like, "No, I'm fine. I'm not going to die of a cough." And Montressor's like, "You're right about that. Why don't you take this bottle of Medoc wine, this nice Bordeaux wine, and kick that cough a little bit, buddy. Just ease that tickle in your throat." So Fortunato takes this wine and throws it back like it is nothing at all, and they head on down through the vaults. So they're walking through the vaults, and Fortunato's like, "Dude, how big are these burial vaults?" And Montresor's like, "Well, the Montressors were a great and numerous family, so yes, it's quite extensive down here." And Fortunato's like, "Yeah, what was your coat of arms again?" And Montressor says, "Oh, it's a gold foot with a snake hanging off the heel. And our family motto is, 'No one hurts me without punishment.'" And Fortunato's like, "Right. Yeah, so where's the Amontillado?" He's like, "It's further on, buddy. We just got to keep going." So they keep on going through the vaults. As they go, Fortunato starts to have another coughing fit, and Montressor's like, "Hey, no worry, buddy. Why don't you take this bottle of de Grave, this other fine Bordeaux wine, and soothe that little itch in your throat. And so Fortunato throws back another bottle of wine. As he sets it down, he makes a kind of odd hand gesture, and Montressor's like, "What are you doing?" And he goes, You don't understand?" And Montressor's like, "No, what are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, you're not of the Brotherhood, are you? You're not in the Freemasons." And Montressor's like, yeah, I am." Pulls a brick trowel out of his cloak. A brick trowel is a little masonry tool, a literal masonry tool for laying bricks. And he said, "Here's my sign that I'm part of the Masons." And Fortunato's like, "Haha, you're weird." So they keep on going through the vaults. They keep moving on. They finally get to the innermost vault. There are 3 walls here, and they're all just, shelves of, skeletons, basically. But in one of the walls, there's a little recess. So there's a little gap. Montressor says that is where the wine is. It's there in that gap in the wall. So Fortunato goes in there, this little gap in the wall, and he's looking around. He's like, "Dude, where is the wine?" About this time, Montressor clamps a chain around his wrist and chains Fortunato to the wall there in the burial chamber. So Fortunato's looking at his hand and he's like, "What in the world?" And Montressor says, "Let me try to convince you one more time to go back. Okay, you don't want to go back? Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna have to leave you right here then." And he turns around and he kicks over a pile of bones, and there is a stack of bricks with a fresh bucket of mortar, which is kind of like concrete. It's for laying bricks. And he starts to brick up this gap in the wall where he has chained Fortunato. Now Fortunato's like, "What is going on?" But he starts to sober up pretty quickly, and he starts struggling with these chains to see if he can get loose. He cannot. So Fortunato starts screaming, and Montressor's like, "I can do that too." And so he starts screaming with them. He is not afraid of getting caught. There is no one to hear them. Montressor keeps building his wall, builds it up and up and up. Finally, there is just one brick, one stone to be put into this wall to completely seal it up. And Montressor is about to do this when he hears like a laughing from the other side. And he's like, "What is going on in there?" And Fortunato is back there like, "Dude, you had me. This was a good one, man. We are gonna be laughing about this for a long time. I mean, this is legendary prank stuff. Way to go, you." And Montressor's like, yeah, we will be laughing about this a long time." And he goes to put the rock in the wall. And Fortunato's like, wait. They are waiting for us. Both of us back at my palazzo, my mansion. Lady Fortunato, my wife, and all my friends, they are waiting on us. So shouldn't you and I get going to, this feast, this party that I'm throwing? Montressor's like, "No." Starts to put the rock in. Fortunato tries one more time. He says, "For the love of God, Montressor." Well, Montressor is not feeling God's love at this point. He goes ahead and shoves the brick in there, finishes up the wall. Now, as he puts that last stone in there, Montressor says that he starts to feel a little bit sick. But it's just from the dampness. He decides it's just the cellar. I've been down here too long. So he finishes up the wall, tidies it up, and shoves the rest of the bones up against the wall. Last line of the story. "Against the new masonry, I re-erected the old rampart of bones. For the half of a century, no mortal has disturbed them. He rests in peace." It says he rests in peace, but in Latin, and I don't read Latin, so we're just going to say he rests in peace. The end. Okay, so that was bleak, and let's go back to the beginning and do some analysis. So first of all, we don't know exactly what Montressor's motive in telling this is. From the last line of the story, we know that this is at least 50 years in the past. So it's possible that he is quite an old man now, and he might be making a final confession. Whoever he's talking to, he calls him, "You who so well know the nature of my soul." So this might be Montressor's priest. He might be looking to unburden himself, kind of set his mind and his conscience at ease before he passes away. Now, the thing is, Montressor does not seem to feel guilty, even if this is some kind of final confession. The very first line of the story is, "The 1,000 injuries of Fortunato I had borne as best I could." So the first thing he tells us is, This guy had been taking swings at me for a while, and I put up with it as best I could, but then he insulted me. So he's trying to justify himself right offhand, and I think he does still think he's justified. In fact, he spends so much time telling exactly how he did this. It comes off as boastful, all of these plans that he executed so perfectly to be sure that he would not get caught, to be sure he had the perfect revenge. I think he does have a real superiority complex here, and he wants to prove his intelligence by telling the reader exactly how he's done this. Okay, so let's take a closer look at our two lead characters. Fortunato first. So the word Fortunato, it's Italian. In English, it means fortunate or lucky. So Fortunato, the fact that the author named him that, we can infer he's a lucky guy. Things have been going pretty well for him. Now, when we meet him, he is wearing motley. This is a court jester's costume. So this tells us that Fortunato probably doesn't take himself too seriously. He's probably kind of the funny guy in his book, in his group of friends. He's kind of the comedian. And maybe this is the source of the insult that Montressor is talking about. Perhaps he made Montressor the butt of a joke, and that is what Montressor can't stand. Also, the fact that he's wearing a court jester's outfit is foreshadowing, because we know that Montressor is going to make a fool of him. Now, Montressor's name has another meaning as well. It's not Italian, actually, it's French. Montressor translates to my treasure. A lot of literary critics think that this refers to Montressor's name, like his name, his good family name, the prestige and honor of his family. That is his treasure, and that is why he cannot stand being insulted. He can't stand his family name being dishonored. Now, as I mentioned, this is a French name, not an Italian name. Montressor seems to be a Frenchman. He's living in Italy. He's apparently been there for several generations because his family has this huge burial vault, but he still sees himself as an outsider. He has a low opinion of Italians, including Fortunato, and this French ancestry may also be kind of the source of this sense of superiority, that he is different, he is outside, and he's above the environment that he's in. There are some hints in the story that the Montressor family has fallen on hard times. So first of all, it's Carnival season, but he's not having a big party at his house. Perhaps because he can't afford to, perhaps because he doesn't have a lot of friends and fans that he can invite to enjoy this time with him. He also doesn't have so many servants at the palazzo that there's always going to be someone around. And his servants don't respect him very much. When he tells them, hey, stay home while I'm gone, he knows that they're all going to take off. He does not have a lot of authority over his house. So there is no one there when he arrives. Also, when they go down to the burial vaults and Fortunato comments on wow, this is really big. And he says, the Montressors were a great and numerous family. So possibly they're no longer great and no longer numerous. Our narrator seems to be the only one who is left. Okay, so the way that he lures Fortunato in is by flattering his ego. He says, hey, I got this huge amount of Amontillado wine. It's this fine wine. And he's like, now I'm worried that I got ripped off and I couldn't find you when I needed you to tell me if it was real. So now I'm going to go find Lucchese because people say that he is almost the expert that you are. At this point, Fortunato says, Lucchese would not know an Amontillado from a sherry. This is a very interesting comment because Amontillado is sherry. And if Fortunato was as smart about wine as he claims to be, as he is reputed to be, he would be very well aware of that. Also, Montressor has been bragging about he is just as much an expert in Italian wine as Fortunato is. Amontillado is not an Italian wine. Amontillado is Spanish. Just how you've heard people joke about if it's not from the correct region in France, it's not champagne, it's just sparkling wine. Same with Amontillado sherry. It has to be from the correct region in Spain. Now, if either of these guys were true wine connoisseurs, they would know that. So it's possible that neither of them actually knows what he's talking about. So how does he get Fortunato to his house? He flatters his ego, like I said, and he also tells him hey, you don't need to go do this right now. I can see you're busy. You're dressed up. I can see you are going to a party. And Fortunato says, no, I'm not. Let's go try this wine. So this is a little bit of reverse psychology. It's flattering the ego again, but also Montressor is making sure that he is not discovered. He's making sure that Fortunato is not expected anywhere, that no one is going to come and look for him. He's covering his tracks. The last thing that he says, kind of the last deterrent, he says, no, you can't go down there. You have a cold, you've got this cough, and you're too weak to go down there. Again, it's an appeal to the ego because Fortunato doesn't want to look weak, but also it's possible that Montressor has heard that Fortunato is sick. He's got this cough, and he wants to be sure that he's still a little bit weak, a little bit vulnerable. So Fortunato insists, no, let's go to your house. Let's try this wine. At this point, Montressor pulls out a black mask and a black cape, and he puts it on. And Fortunato, of course, is still wearing his court jester's outfit. Now, it is Carnival season, so there's going to be lots of people dressed up, lots of people wearing masks, and Montressor is making sure that he blends into the crowd. So he looks like a reveler because he's wearing a mask, but he is not wearing a noticeable costume. He wants to be sure anyone that sees Fortunato will not recognize who he is. So he's got his face covered. It's a very nondescript, it's not at all an elaborate or expensive looking costume. It's just a black cape. So disguises who he is and makes sure he does not attract any attention. Also, the servants he knows have left the house, so there are no witnesses to what he's about to do. So they get to the Montressor Palazzo, this mansion there in Italy, and they head down to the vaults, the catacombs. Now, vaults are burial vaults. They're these great big tombs underneath the house where all of this rich, famous family can be buried together. But because it's underground, it's cool, it's temperature controlled, it is a place where people would also store fine wines. So it's not strange to Fortunato that they are going down to the burial vaults. Of course, we who know that Montressor is planning revenge know that this is foreshadowing. He is leading Fortunato to where he's going to be entombed. Now, one of the things that Montressor points out once they get down there, he says there's niter on the walls. These are potassium nitrate crystals that form in damp, cool places. So this is kind of like if you've ever been in a cavern, stalactites form, these kind of crystal things. So there are potassium nitrate crystals that have formed on the wall of this vault. It indicates that they are very deep underground at this point. Also, I looked this up. The National Library of Medicine classifies potassium nitrate as an irritant. It's a lung irritant specifically, causes coughing and sneezing fits. And so Fortunato, who already has a cold, he's got a respiratory infection, starts coughing immediately when they get down into the vaults. And Montressor, who knows this guy has an ego, says, you really need to go back. You're too weak to be here. So he's encouraging him to leave, but he's doing it in a way that ensures Fortunato will stay. And then Fortunato says, I won't die of a cough. And Montressor's like, true. Again, it's foreshadowing. We know what Fortunato does not, that Montressor has something else in store. So at 2 points, when they're down in the cellar, Montressor gives him bottles of wine to kind of soothe Fortunato's throat. The first one is Medoc and the second one is de Grave. Now, again, for all this talk about Italian wine, we haven't seen any Italian wine. These are both French wines. They are from Bordeaux region. Fortunato takes these wines and throws them back like they're water, like they're nothing. This is another hint that he's not the wine aficionado he claims to be, because he doesn't acknowledge oh, what an incredible, beautiful, expensive wine this is. He doesn't sip it and taste it. He just throws it back like a shot. Also, there could be a little subliminal message here. Montressor, his French name, he looks down on Italians and he's using French wine to get this Italian man kind of into his web, into his trap. Now, the obvious benefit to him giving Fortunato these wines to soothe his throat is it keeps him drunk. It keeps him weak and vulnerable while they are down in these catacombs. While they're down there, they discuss the Montressor coat of arms. And again, it is the gold foot on a field of blue with a snake hanging off its ankle. And the motto is, no one hurts me without punishment. Again, foreshadowing, because we know what Montressor is up to. Now, the image of the foot that's being bitten by the snake, if you compare that to our two main characters, it's hard to tell which one is which. Montressor could represent the foot, The gold color meaning prestige and class and family history. He has been struck by Fortunato and he is going to punish him. You could also see Fortunato as the foot, innocently walking through the grass. He brushes against a snake and the snake bites him as punishment. Let's talk about this kind of random seeming bit about the Freemasons. Fortunato makes a hand signal that is associated with the Freemasons. Montressor does not recognize it because he's not in the club. Now, I kind of wonder, since they live in the same city, they are longtime acquaintances, you can't just join the Freemasons, you have to be invited, you have to be approved by the other members. Fortunato should have known that Montressor was not in the club. I'm kind of wondering if Fortunato did this on purpose. He's kind of rubbing Montressor's face in it that Montressor has not been invited to join the Freemasons, this kind of fraternity organization. When he asked Montressor for a sign, prove to me that you're a part of the Freemasons because you did not recognize the secret handshake, Montressor pulls out the brick trowel. This is a bricklaying tool, a masonry tool. So there's a joke there, obviously. It's like, yeah, I'm a mason. See, here's my masonry tool right here. But of course, it is foreshadowing for how Montressor is going to dispose of Fortunato. And Fortunato, for some reason, does not question why his good buddy has a bricklaying tool in his pocket. When they arrive at the innermost vault, he tells them, okay, the Amontillado's inside, and Montressor mentions Lucchese one more time, this other resident wine expert. Fortunato says he's an ignoramus, and he walks right into the vault. Very ironic because calling Lucchese says he's an ignoramus, he's stupid, he's an idiot, and then he walks right into the trap that has been set for him. So once he has Fortunato trapped, Montressor goes to building this wall, and this is really cold-blooded. This is very cruel. This is not a quick death. This is not a crime of passion. Not only has he planned this, but he gives Fortunato plenty of time to understand what he is doing. He's going to not only die slowly behind the wall, but he is going to, just feel the fear and the dread mount as he's forced to watch Montressor build this wall to seal him in. Now, the fact that Montressor's method of murder is walling Fortunato up, this reminds me of that earlier conversation about the Freemasons. And that is what makes me wonder if that has something to do with the insult that has offended Montressor so much. Perhaps he has been denied entry to the Freemasons. Perhaps it was Fortunato himself that blackballed him, that said, no, I don't want him in here, he can't come in. As retaliation, he's going to use literal mason work to kill Fortunato to get his revenge. Fortunato makes kind of a last-ditch effort to get out of here. He says, this is a very good joke indeed. So perhaps he's remembering all the jokes he made in the past at Montressor's expense, and he's kind of acknowledging like, yep, you're smarter than me. You got me. It's a little bit of a peace offering. Doesn't work on Montressor. He goes on to finish this wall. Then Fortunato brings up, hey, they're waiting for us. What did he say? Will they not be awaiting us at the palazzo? The Lady Fortunato and the rest. Let us be gone. First of all, he's warning Montressor, like, someone's going to be looking for me. My wife is going to notice I'm missing. My family's going to notice I'm not there. And my friends are going to come looking for me. So it's a warning, but it's also a peace offering. He uses the word us 2 times. He says, will they not be awaiting us? Let us be gone. So he's telling Montressor, like, I promise I'm going to include you in the future. You're going to be in the inner circle. You're going to be in the club. Please just let me go. When Montressor goes on and finishes the wall and he says he feels sick, but it's definitely just because of the dampness. He denies feeling any kind of guilt, any kind of remorse. The last line, he rests in peace, he might be referring to Fortunato, like, nobody's found the body, no one's moved it, he rests in peace. Or he might be referring to himself, like, I haven't gotten caught, I'm not sorry, I'm not suffering, he rests in peace, meaning himself. If you've read some of the other stories by Edgar Allan Poe, you're definitely going to notice some links here. If you don't want any spoilers, close your ears now. There are a lot of links to the Black Cat especially, and also to the Telltale Heart. So those were written in the order of Telltale Heart was released first, then The Black Cat, then Cask of Amontillado. All three of these stories are told in the first person by murderers who are recounting in detail how they did it. Just like in the Telltale Heart, this is a fully premeditated murder. The killer knows exactly how he's going to do this, and again, there is zero remorse here. This has a whole lot more links to The Black Cat. The killer, Montressor, and the killer in The Black Cat use the same method to conceal the body. They wall the body up with bricks in a cellar. Also, in The Black Cat, when the killer makes the decision that he's going to conceal the body this way, he says he's going to do it like monks in the Middle Ages walled up their victims. You know, he's going to wall them up in the cellar. And that's kind of a strange religious reference, but it does bring us back to the first paragraph of Cask of Amontillado, when Montressor says he's planning Fortunato's immolation. Now, immolation means like a ritual sacrifice, you know, usually a religious sacrifice. And then, of course, he goes on to commit the same act as the killer in The Black Cat. So you've definitely got some very off-the-wall religious references kind of working their way into both of these guys' minds. So, yeah, all the weirdness. All right, that's about all I've got on the Cask of Amontillado. I hope you found some of that helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe so you can know when the next story becomes available. If you have a different story you're interested in or a different author altogether, definitely drop that in the comments and I'll see what I can do. Best of luck to you, and I'll see you in the next chapter.